Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 159, The Tipping Point. And doesn't it just feel like that right now? Doesn't it just feel like that moment on this planet, wherever you are, that we are at a giant tipping point? That's what we're talking about today on this episode. Enjoy.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci. Here to remind you that you are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 159, The Tipping Point. And let's just jump right in. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I humbly request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. Please let this episode be useful to all listeners and allow it to reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. So a few different phrases have been falling into my mind lately. The tipping point, the breaking point, the moment of truth, the point of no return. Something about dominoes that hasn't been super clear, but that's been the image. Like one domino and then every other domino is just endlessly going down. And it really feels like that's where we are right now as a planet. Just in my own personal life with myself, my life, and those close to me. It seems like every single person has, if not a large crisis happening in some aspect of their life, at least something intense. And for me, what this has meant and represented is that we are all feeling the intensity of the energy and the shifts happening on this planet right now in some way. And all of those ways can look very different depending on who you are, where you are, what your karma is, what your contribution, what your role is in this lifetime. But if you're on this planet, it's impossible to deny that something very unique is happening right now. For me, part of what this has looked like is kind of an all-out battle in one of the towns that I spend time in. Just things changing, people wanting out of the old way of doing things and into the new way, and then about half and half. Half the people want a new way of doing things, half the people don't want a new way of doing things. Neighbor versus neighbor, which is never fun and never comfortable. And that's one aspect, one way that this has been, that this energy, that this moment has been manifesting physically in my life. I have other friends who, one is working at an organization that is undergoing a lot of transformation and shifting right now, but the energy is just not good. And she keeps wondering why she's there and what she's doing there and is she being any help? And I guess the point right now is it's on faith that all of these things are not only going to move forward for the better, but that you as an individual person are affecting them for the better. I can have this hope and this faith and this belief that my role in what my town is experiencing right now is a positive force. And I hope that it is, but I don't know the outcome of this yet. I don't know the short or long-term effects of what's happening and what my ultimate effect on it will be. I hope that it is positive. Same for my friends working at the organization that's going through a tough transition right now. She's there and wants to be a force for good, a positive energy. But we can't see what the end of that, what the completion, what the evolution of that situation is. And these are just 2 drops in a very, very large bucket of what all of us are going through right now in our own unique ways. I could talk about where I live in North Carolina and how it got very affected by Hurricane Helene. And I think I mentioned that in the last episode. And the trials and tribulations and everything that comes in with an event like that affecting the lives of everyone who lives in that path. That is something that we are all trying to overcome in all of the areas that were affected by that. That is one of the trials that all of the people in that area are trying to overcome, in addition to anything else that's happening in their lives. In a few days, we are having a U.S. presidential election in the United States of America. Big moment. Huge moment. Not to mention all the other things happening around the world right now, the various wars, and the threat of more violence and more conflict and more war in the Middle East. And these are not the only things. I guess my point here to set up this episode is that large or small, the entire scale, personal or global, we're all going through intense moments of transformation and of purification. What do I mean by transformation? I mean something that is changing into whatever we're talking about was something and was one way, and it's transforming into a different thing. It's changing. It's not staying the same. It's transforming. What do I mean by purification? I mean the removal, elimination of things that are not pure, things that are not necessarily the highest and best possible good. And in a lot of cases, that might just be energy. And I don't pretend to know what that is in every situation at all, but it is clear that we are going through this transformation and purification process all over in every situation we can think of, great and small. And maybe we always have been. Maybe that's the nature of life on this planet. Maybe that's the nature of this game, this existence. Maybe that is what this planet is for. We're here to play out our karmas. I believe I've said that before. I don't know if that's exactly true or not, that this planet was just created for whatever stage of consciousness we all happen to kind of be in right now, so that we can come here, incarnate in the physical, and work out our shit. All these people need to learn that lesson. These people need to learn this lesson. Let's throw them together and create situations where they need to play this out and move to the next level. That really, truly could be what this existence is about. It very much could be. And so on some level, as I said, we are all moving through these situations that are trying to us, that are intense, that are transformative, that are purifying. If you're listening to this and you're not going through any one of those, I'd love to talk to you just to see what kind of being you are and what your role might be at this time of intense transformation. But I think on some level, subtle or obvious, we're all experiencing this intensity. And why am I talking about this? We seem to be at a tipping point in almost, okay, I won't say almost all, in so many situations that I personally am observing. There's a point where something changes and it then, like dominoes, starts to affect everything else moving forward. And on some level, this is how the world is. This is how the world works. Everything affects everything else. We're all connected. The butterfly effect, etc. That's real. But at some point, all of these microcosm things that maybe we each individually are experiencing all the time and filter up into the macrocosm, and there's always change, there's always transformation. But this seems to be a point on this planet at this time that these transformations are going to be or are already being felt on a global scale, in a bigger, perhaps a larger way than usual. It feels very much as though the dominoes maybe have been falling, but are at that point where they start to move faster and more things are falling. And the exciting part in all of that is we don't know what the result looks like. At least I don't know what the result looks like. And I would hazard a guess that the grand majority of us, before we incarnated, that was part of the idea, that was part of the plan, that was part of the agreement, is that we would not remember once we embodied what was going to come of all of this. Because how would we get through it if we knew what was coming on some level? I do not have any conscious idea of what the next few months looks like. But it feels like they might be the most important months in the history of this planet, at least in modern times. At least in this time frame. And this planet's been through a lot. I feel that there have been several very advanced civilizations on this planet before ours. It's not like the planet sprung into existence just in the recorded, remembered history of the last couple thousand years. So it's not like the planet hasn't seen these moments before. These tipping points have happened here before. It feels like it's in the very fabric of this place, of this planet. These have happened before. The energy is there. The imprint is there. The energy signature is there. These huge moments have happened here before. And you know, it's possible I'm blowing this up to being bigger than it really is. I don't feel like that's happening. I feel like this is the reason we all incarnated, as I've spoken about on the last couple of episodes. I feel like this is a huge moment after which everything transforms and changes. That we've been leading up to this, that we've been all leading up to this moment. We all incarnated for this moment. But hey, on a big scale and a universal scale and vision, this might just be the most insignificant blip for the rest of the universe. It really might be. But it doesn't matter because we're here right now and we're experiencing this. And the myriad of different challenges that everyone else is overcoming right now is staggering. So many different things to overcome, and so many different energies to digest, to move through. I think I mentioned this before, that after Hurricane Helene, just being in the energy of Western North Carolina was very difficult because of the fear, the sadness, the grief, the anger permeating throughout that whole area. We are empathic beings. We feel each other. The feelings that we are all feeling affect each other, whether you're right next to the person or not. And when a big event like that happens, there are some overarching energies and emotions that permeate throughout that everyone is feeling. And then that ripples out and affects everyone else. So when you have the entire planet going through a diversity of intense, transformational and purifying situations, we all get to feel that because of our energetic and spiritual and physical connections to each other. Whether we're conscious of it or unconscious of it, it's happening. And I find myself continuing to remind me and those around me, we're not just feeling the stuff that we are doing right now. The last several days where I've been have been incredibly intense. And I'm feeling all of those feelings, and so is everybody else here. We're all feeling these things, but we may not realize, or we may forget, that it's not just my stuff that I'm dealing with. I'm feeling everyone else's stuff too. And I'm saying that as a reminder for all of us that whatever you may be going through, you need to remember that you're also internalizing and trying to digest the feelings, emotions, energies of everyone else in your vicinity as well, which is more heightened than usual. So what do I recommend about that? Everyone has their different ways of becoming more in alignment and into balance with themselves. I like detox baths where you have Epsom salt, sea salt, and baking soda, and it helps to just take out the toxins. Anything bad, it just helps to seep out through your skin, so that can help. There's other things. This is not what this episode is about necessarily, but it's coming through, so I just wanted to remind anyone who happens to be listening to this, we're all feeling more than just our own stuff right now. And on some level, that's always true, but right now, it is heightened. It's heightened. I don't care where you are. Maybe there's some remote places that are experiencing less purification and transformation than others right now. That's totally possible. That's fine. You can also make requests of your teams, whatever your divine teams are, to remove any excess energy, feelings, emotions, etc., transformational sludge that you don't need to carry. And in fact, our bonus content for this episode is a clearing and several requests doing just that. And I'll do one now to see, just to have here in case it helps you. One that I do every day. Masters and angels, I request that you balance my brain chemicals, my emotional chemicals, my behavioral chemicals, and my hormones now. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. So those are the types of, that's one example of something, a request that you can do. Because again, if you don't ask for it, how's it going to happen? If you're not asking for help of these divine beings that can help us, they can't just jump in and do the thing for you if you're not asking for help. So again, not necessarily the main point of this episode, but definitely part of it. Now back to the tipping point. These things have happened in a small way. These moments are always happening. Things are always changing and transforming and purifying on this planet. It's not like it's new. It's just that this is a pinnacle. This moment is different. And I guess that part of the purpose of this episode is just to name that, acknowledge it, recognize that we are here and that our lives, our way of life as we know it could change and is changing. And that could be on a micro scale, could be on a macro scale, probably will be on a macro scale, all of that. And to just be there and ready to observe this, to flow with it, to transform with it, to purify with it, to be in attunement and alignment with your high self so that you know where you need to be, what you need to do, how to play out your role in this moment, because we all have roles to play in this moment. We all have things that we need to accomplish or observe or assist in or subtly influence without maybe us even being aware that we're subtly influencing anything. But what's clear to me is that we are all part of this tipping point that's happening right now, everywhere, all around us. So I guess one of the things I wanted to get across in this episode is to be aware of that and become very aware of what is needed of you in all respects. What's needed of you by your family, by your friends, by your own high self, by the divine. Because if you open up to that, you will know. You will get information if you ask for it. If you are clear and you desire to know more about what you need to do, and then you listen, you will get an answer. And that level of communication, that awareness, just might be the thing that you need to help move through this next moment on the planet. And maybe all of us are becoming more heightened and aware of next steps. Maybe that is something that's just happening evolutionarily right now for our kind. Maybe we are ready to be more conscious and remember more of what this incarnation is about. Maybe we're there. Maybe some people are there. It feels like a collective shift to me. And sometimes I wish I could be more specific. This is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is what this is going to look like, and this is how this is going to change. I am at a loss. But for the most part, it feels exciting to me. For the most part, it feels positive. For the most part, it feels optimistic. For the most part, it feels like all of the darkness that has had this planet in a chokehold for maybe ever, or at least a really long time, it feels like all of that is coming to the surface so that we can actually see it and then decide what we want to do with it. Do we want to keep it that way? If you can't see negativity and darkness dictating and controlling our most basic ways of life, how are you supposed to change it? How are you supposed to decide that that's something that you want? And I think part of this tipping point is we're seeing it now. We're seeing all of the various ways that this planet has been operating, that the beings on this planet have been operating in ways that we never realized before and saw before so clearly. And so now it's like, wow, all right, do we want to continue this? And if not, what way do we want to go? So it's really exciting. And I'm not saying that it's a cakewalk or easy or that it's painless or that it's stress-free. It's none of those things. But it's also happening now, which means on some level it is meant to be happening. And so what do we do with that? I am hopeful. And at this point, it's more than hopeful that we all get through this and move towards more positivity and move towards more light and move towards more divinity and more awareness and more consciousness. That's my wish. And I'll leave it there for today. If you want to enjoy the bonus content of this episode, you can find it at patreon.com/letsgetmeta. And you can listen to all bonus content once you're able to access that one. As always, thank you so much for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up, and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.